A decade after Payday 2, Starbreeze Studios brings us another fast-paced, 4-player heist simulator, Payday 3. The heist simulator and FPS horde shooter comes in with a bang, delivering heist missions in full force. Fans of past installments and newcomers will have plenty to enjoy in Payday 3. There are several returning mechanics, some new inclusions, and some omissions. Tune in to find out if the modern-day heist simulator is worth breaking the bank. This is a video adaptation of our Payday 3 review article on GameMate. Check the full review link below. Payday 3 takes place several years after the original Payday gang's reign of terror in New York. Due to the emergence of a new threat to their lives, the group decides to come out of early retirement and return to a life of crime. Payday 3 has shifted to presenting a single-player campaign with multiplayer elements, which is a big departure from Payday 2's focus on multiplayer. The story content serves to connect all heists together and become the main driving force behind the game's crime spree. Whether they want to play solo or run with a crew, players can immediately identify a starting point and commence playing since the running story is easily accessible alongside its corresponding missions. The first few cutscene animatics merely serve as transitions for random unconnected heists. Fortunately, however, the latter half improves as they finally connect the overarching narrative with the mission objectives. The storytelling to tie the heists together ultimately lacks depth, but its purpose is still sound and executed well.
Welcome to the Payday gang.
Payday 3 modernized its core gameplay mechanics in casing and mask mode while introducing new features and enhancements, making heists feel different but still familiar. Casing mode is the default behavior of the crew as they load into the mission, where they appear like everyday citizens to infiltrate premises, scout for information, and mark objects of interest. Skills like running, crouching, and lockpicking open up new possibilities for stealth runs with these new quality of life additions. Stealth runs are now much more forgiving when caught in a private area in casing mode. A neat implementation of the proximity-based function is escorting. Before, after getting fully discovered by a security guard in plain clothes, the game forced players to mask up and initiate combat. But now, after getting caught, you can immediately stop whatever you're doing, comply with the guard's orders, and be promptly escorted out into a public area.
Fantastic, you actually listened. Now stay the f*** out of there.
You just have to stay in their proximity while being escorted to not trigger any alerts or arrests in order not to jeopardize a stealth run. This is a great addition to the stealth aspect of the game, since it acts as a safety net for players who might mistakenly show themselves to guards. It can also be a viable strategy for safely leaving a private area. Mass mode, on the other hand, has all movement and environmental interactions unlocked, and enables them to use their guns and equipment. On top of being able to run, players can now also vault over and slide under objects. This is a small but highly appreciated introduction of more movement possibilities, useful for dodging and for style. Payday 3 has brought out the big guns with its new overkill weapons. They are extremely powerful guns that can exclusively be used in mask mode. For each enemy killed in battle, an overkill meter fills up. Once full, it enables players to call in a drop order and receive the overkill weapon on the battlefield. Whether you want to even the odds or deliver fear and mayhem to your enemies, it's all up to you when and how you use these overkill weapons. Payday's skill tree makes a comeback with recognizable skills and abilities. It has 17 skill trees that players can sink into. Now it includes 3 main buffs: Edge, Grit, and Rush, which can be generated depending on the player's actions. Much of the abilities that can be unlocked in the skill tree encourage more skill synergy and utilization of these 3 buffs. Still, it would have been better if the skill trees didn't lack intuitive designs besides the yellow notches and cards to select skills. The help blurb only offers surface level information and doesn't contribute to understanding the skill synergy that the game requires out of players. Payday 3 evolves upon the excellent gameplay of its predecessor, but makes some questionable and significant omissions that, as a whole, elevated Payday 2. Payday 2's mission select screen, crime.net, was extensively used to find open multiplayer missions. Players were able to see which missions were open and could easily choose which ones to join. This allowed people to play solo or team up with other players to discover unfamiliar or harder missions. Now, Payday 3 has removed the ease and accessibility that crime.net once had, and in its place is a new automatic matchmaking system. This presentation makes it suddenly feel like an always online single-player campaign game with multiplayer elements. It's a terrible way to find parties, as it heavily depends on a very populated player base to be queuing for all missions and difficulties at most times. While the implementation of the campaign was thoughtful, it was only helpful in terms of linear progression. It would have been better to have a modern iteration of Crime.net that would allow a seamless transition from both games, while providing accessibility to newer players who are new to the world of Payday. A staple feature that is also noticeably absent is pre-planning. When joining a lobby in Payday 2, there would be an extensive pre-planning stage where players were allowed to buy additional resource items and gain various information. Now, though party members can still purchase resource bags, there isn't a more tactical in-depth study phase. The preparation phase, where you look at floor plans, plant cameras at select spots, or get an insider to bypass certain security, was very crucial in immersing players into the role of heist masters, and its absence led to a very sizable hole in the experience. Besides the removal of pre-planning, the lobby itself lacks utility and functionality. There are no chat and voice channels to discuss strategies with your party members. Prior planning and discussion are prominent social features in Payday 2, and the lack of communication in this game is something that is sorely missed. Lastly, the lack of an option to cancel matches is another questionable thing. The game locks you into your choices, leaving you with no other option but to play it through or leave the match should you change your mind about selecting different maps or loadouts. Payday 3 brings a new mechanic of leveling up guns to unlock their upgrades and modifications. In the previous installment, players could obtain modifications for completing missions and immediately mod their guns using these modifications. Now, guns have levels, where certain mods can be unlocked and bought. This would be a very welcome mechanic if the grind wasn't so steep and contrived. To gain experience, the player must complete challenges within missions. These challenges are not tracked during the heists and are only shown in the results screen after completing said heist. It's essentially running and gunning in the dark, hoping that missions allow players to complete enough challenges to level the weapons up. It's a very unintuitive system that isn't transparent with its progression requirements. Payday 3 takes its predecessor's graphics and cranks it up to 11, achieving excellent, realistic visuals comparable to any big-budget game. Maps are rich with environmental design that breathes life and immerses players. Characters' masks return and look pristine in the modern engine, and the character animations feel better and smoother. However, with all the upgrades, its user interface still fails to live up to modern standards. Befuddled with confusing menu navigation, unhelpful health bubbles, and lack of information labels, the game may provide players with some frustrating experiences. Moving over to audio, the Payday series is famous for its astounding soundtracks, and they did not disappoint. Gustavo Cucino is the sole composer, and he provides an electrifying new feel for the soundtrack, while still overflowing with the adrenaline-inducing vibe of the past title.
The cops have arrived, and they don't look happy.
The first few tracks have a different feel from its predecessor, but it still brings that feeling of controlled mayhem. Each heist so far has its own custom song, and every single one has been stellar, with its atmosphere build-up and beat drop when things get hectic. The only downside is that the accompanying gun sound effects during gunfights just don't have enough punch behind them to make it feel powerful. The voice acting is far from serious, as it doesn't really take itself seriously. The NPCs, from enemies to hostages, are now more expressive and immersive, with so many situational voice lines that add to the charm of the game.
Ah, shit, there goes our cover. Gonna scram.
Enemies bark at players with threats, or command their crew as they try to stop your crew from completing the heist. The campy and cartoony performances fit the vibe of a franchise that's sarcastically quippy in its nature. It's a feature that is comically executed, enriches player interaction, and adds more fun to the world.
Oh, shit. Did I just push that button again? Sorry about that, control.
GameMate gives Payday 3 a score of 8 over 10. The game tries to modernize the classic heist simulator series coming from the 10 years worth of updates from Payday 2. Boasting new cutting-edge graphics, expanded but familiar gameplay, and an exceptional soundtrack, players will have a great time with Payday 3. Its handful of heists are also jam-packed with tons of depth and replayability. It's not all rainbows and sunshines though. Its matchmaking system, disorganized menus, and lobby system is substantially lacking. Payday 3 is still a highly enjoyable game, but even after a decade's worth of experience from its previous title, the game fails to reach its full potential. So, what do you think of Payday 3? Do you think it's better than Payday 2? What other FPS games do you think we should cover? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to check out our full review of Payday 3 at our website, linked in the description below. We'll see you in the next one.